My name is Jason Foster. My film is In Search of Pregame, and I'm the writer, director, star, I guess. I don't know. It's a personal documentary, so editor, all the things.
All the things.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that personal side. Tell me a bit about your dad and kind of where this idea kind of came from to kind of tell, what you've told us in this doc.
Yeah, so my dad died when I was 12, and when you're that young, you don't really ask questions about fatherhood and what it means to be a dad and raise a son and this, that, and the third. So when my second child was born, Koji, I have a daughter, Manami, when he was born, I started to think of okay, well, I wish I had my dad here to ask questions and kind of guide me through the process of just raising a boy, let alone another child. So that's where it came about. That's where the germ of the idea came about, and that just led me down the road to looking at my old home videos. Well, actually, so it was kind of simultaneous. I was having these thoughts, and I started to archive, digitize my home videos, mini DVs, VHS tapes, and all that stuff. And I came across my basketball tapes, playing in elementary and high school and middle school and everything. And I started to notice, and some college tapes, intramural college, not I never made the team. I was a little too lazy, or out of shape, I should say. So I was noticing I was doing the same moves throughout elementary and middle school and so forth and so on. So I connected those two things, what am I doing unconsciously as a parent that my father did with me, and I don't have him to ask these questions. So that's kind of where everything kind of came to coalesce.
Can we talk about the title and the reason for the title the way it is? And was there any other titles you were wanting to use?
Well, In Search of, there's a lot I don't know about my dad. The story, there's a story that really, another part of this film was, the story goes that my father, he was drafted by the Minneapolis Lakers. But before he got to play for him, he was riding a horse, fell off the horse, broke his leg, never got to play. So I was told that after he died. So I never got to corroborate the story. And this was, I think, back in the late 50s, early 60s. And back then they had a draft, the NBA had draft rounds that went up into the double digits, draft pick number 199, a grocer from Rochester, Minnesota. He's 6'8", or I read a story that I think the Celtics or somebody drafted Gerald Ford because he was a good athlete. He's kind of stunt drafting and things like that. So In Search of is me searching for ideas about, or not ideas, but searching for my father, but also searching within myself what it means to be a father. And I'm also a big NERD fan, nerd. So the name of their first album is In Search Of. So it's kind of, homage to them and all that.
Perfect. That's where I was hoping you would go with it.
Yeah. Sorry. In Pregame, this is a short documentary. So the idea is that I would also do feature length.
Yeah.
So,
You'd get to the game part.
Exactly.
Is it easier or more difficult to make something like this, knowing it's personal, compared to other work that have a separation at least from on a personal level, like previous work you've done?
It's definitely harder. It's harder because there's a lot of introspection. There's a lot of, family history. I'm asking my mom about her dead husband. So sorry. Let me get some water real quick.
Yeah.
Sorry. I'm not about to cry. My voice is really dry.
I'm going to say you were about to cry. It's such a good question. It's emotional.
Yeah, right.
That's awesome.
All right. Yeah. So. Yeah, it's you know, you're dealing with the personal stuff, so you gotta look within yourself, start to investigate why you're feeling this way. Yeah, asking, like in the movie, I didn't include this part, but I'm asking my mom, like, what was that like, or this, that, and the third, and she's like, do we have to, are you gonna record this? I was like, yeah, Mom, this is the movie. Like, you agreed to be in the movie, so it's just voice, but you know, it's still a tough topic. It's something that happened over 20 years ago. I'm 38, so he died when I was 12. Yeah, so, but it's a way for healing too. It's also a way for my children to know about their grandfather. You know, if I can find something about him that I didn't know, I can pass that along. And in a way, it's also an archive of them growing up, because, you know, part of they're in the film. So,
was it difficult to put them in the film? I mean, I like them in the film. It adds so much to why you're doing it. But I'm curious, was there ever an idea like, I don't want them in the film?
Not really. My wife is also a filmmaker, and we find ways to like feature our children in our films. But I guess a lot of our work deals with family, so it's kind of a natural thing. And yeah, they're used to it by now.
What does Tallgrass mean to you?
Tallgrass, it means a lot to me. They brought me and my friend, a scribe called Quest, out here last year with a feature documentary, Many Fires This Time, with 100 Million, and the reception was great. They treated us lovely, and I feel like they were one of the first film fests to really like embrace the film and like see the film for what it was, the poetry and the message behind the poets and the message we're trying to get across with the film. They really latched onto it, and I think this is my 4th or 5th time in Kansas since then. Like, Tallgrass brought us back another time to screen the film at the Dunbar Theater, which I think is just newly renovated. The Gordon Parks Museum out in Fort Scott, they brought us out. So yeah, I mean, Kansas and Tallgrass have been great to me and great to the films that I made. So
I'm glad you brought up Gordon Parks. That's such the importance of representing Gordon's legacy is now a part of, I think, Tallgrass's what they want to do for the rest of time. Hopefully, it's why David is so, while he's still here with us, is so important to being here. What's it like knowing that there is a festival that is looking towards diversity and inclusion, even though it is in a very rural southern place?
I mean, I think it's great. You know, I mean, Gordon Parks was such a Renaissance man, like maybe the first one of his kind to a modern Renaissance man in that respect, as far as composing, writing, acting, photography, I mean, filmmaking, everything. So for the local community, but also Kansas at large, to know that Gordon Parks is from Kansas and from Fort Scott, and didn't really shy away from being from Fort Scott in Kansas. I think that's very integral to weaving his name and his ethos and just invoking his spirit within Tallgrass. I mean, that's the reason why I submitted the first time. Yeah. I was looking on Film Freeway and I saw that it had a Gordon Parks Award. I was like, okay, I've never seen that before from another film fest. Granted, last year was the first time I really like delved into, I'm submitting work to a lot of film fests, but to see Gordon Parks' name, it gave it a stamp of validity that a lot of film fests, I didn't see that from a lot of film fests. So,
as far as your creative process, are you working on something now that it's going to be down the line? Like, what is the separation factor between films? Is there one?
I like to be working on things at all times just to keep myself busy. Yeah, man, this Kansas.
You know, I heard there was arsenic in the walls, so
Okay, that could
we're
be
gonna
it.
die either way.
Arsenic and old lace, yeah. No, I like to stay busy. I actually just took a job as a high school teacher, teaching film at an art school in New Orleans. So that's taking my time. But like the plan is to do a feature-length version of In Search Of. We'll call it In Search Of. Just no pregame.
So, get to the game. Like you said.
Yeah, right to the and that's going to look a lot different from this version. I mean, this version. I was thinking about it on the plane on the way here last night. I was like, I think I should like add another layer to the title, like Stanley Kubrick when he did Doctor Strangelove.
Oh, and then they printed.
Or you know, so this would be like In Search Of Pregame, or a letter to my late father, because that's the way I see it. It's kind of like, here are all the things that I've done since you've been gone. So that's another way you could look at it. So yeah, but that's the only thing really. The big thing is making this a feature, and hopefully I can get some money for it, which I've applied for. I applied for a grant, so by December I should know if I get awarded some money. Yeah,
turn it around.
Yeah. So I made it to the second round of this panel review, sent to my budget, and if I get it, it'll be like $35,000 to do more research and development. So
very cool.
Yeah.
Do you mind if I ask about your teaching gig and teaching in a film school? Is this a Arts Magnet? What is this?
Yeah, so it's called NOCA, New Orleans. Man, just cut that part out. I'm just gonna say NOCA. You can put a subtitle under it. When
you just started. They'll get it.
Yeah. It's an art school in New Orleans. It's been around. I think this year is its 50th anniversary. So they have 12, 13 different disciplines: musical theater, drama, media arts, which is animation, music and film. What else? Culinary, dance. I might have said dance already. Just a lot of things for high school students around Louisiana to come to. So I teach 9th through 12th grade. 9th graders are level 1s, although some 9th graders are level 2, level 3, level 4, depending on like how proficient they are at what they audition with. So, and then level 2 through 4 are 10th through 12th graders. Wow. And I'm not a teacher by trade, but it's very artist friendly, meaning that you don't have to have an MFA, because I don't have an MFA. I have a BA, but I've been making films for like 12 years now, at least professionally. I've gotten paid in the past 12 years to make films, so they took that into account, and yeah.
I definitely think 12 years filmmaking is a lot more than getting an MFA in a film program somewhere.
I agree. Yes, no shade to the MFA folks out there, but yeah.
As far as things you're into, I think I asked you guys this last time when we talked, but what are you reading? What are you watching?
How am I reading?
Or listening to? God, you're a music guy. Yeah.
Yeah, I like music. What am I listening to? Freddie Gibbs just came out with a new album. Started listening to that last night. Freddie Gibbs he's from Indiana, so kind of like around the area.
Midwest.
Yeah, the Midwest. Watching. I've been getting deep into some Wong Kar-wai films.
Really?
Yeah. So the last one I watched, which I hadn't seen before, was As Tears Go By.
Oh.
Have you seen that one?
Yeah. I love him.
Yeah.
His work is amazing.
I showed, so every Friday we have a movie day at school, and I showed them Chungking Express. And some were like, oh, yeah, it was kind of cool.
They just don't know
kind of boring.
Kids.
Yeah.
You know how hard that film was to shoot for him? That's awesome.
That's the thing, but if I expose them to things that they wouldn't watch normally, that's fine. If you find it boring, that's... Like, I also showed them Vagabond by Agnes Varda. And some of them really dug it. Others were like, yo, that was so boring. I'm like, all right, well, the only thing I can do is just show you the film. If you don't like it, you don't like it. But
she's just like an icon.
I know, yeah. It's just like, oh, okay, all right.
The first female filmmakers, yeah, okay.
I mean,
but that's beautiful that you were showing these films to these kids. I love that.
Yeah, I'm trying to do like, can we watch this, that, and can we watch The Breakfast Club? I'm like, no, it's on TNT like every Saturday. Like, I want to show you guys things that you would skip past when you're, looking at what to watch. So, yeah, I think. So I'm trying to like eat my veggies as far as the movie things goes, but also like watch some things that I've missed. But yeah, that's books. What's the last book I read? I've been trying to finish A Brief History of Seven Killings by Marlon James, which is like the history of.
It's not an easy book.
No, it's thick. It's really big, and I got through a lot of it, but then I stopped, and I was like, I need to restart because that book, I mean, it's like straight up. Oh, Paul Thomas Anderson. I mean, that's one of my favorite filmmakers. So I just rewatched Boogie Nights.
Oh, yeah.
I probably I feel like I watch Magnolia at least once a year. But yeah, kind of a lot of things. Yeah.
Well, Jason, I hope we continue to do this every year. I feel like it's a pleasure to chat with you. And thank you for coming back to Tallgrass, being bold enough to tell a more personal story. I was blown away by it. I didn't realize how in-depth the story we would get, and we got so much. I can't wait to see what a feature would look like.
Yeah, the feature is going to look a lot different. The plan is to have like parallel storylines going. One is me like going to Foster's, Alabama, which my dad grew up in Alabama, but also like kind of tracking like, more of like in search of like, who was my father, where did he come from. I kind of know the circumstances he grew up in because he grew up pre-civil rights, Alabama, Deep South, Jim Crow,
It sells itself.
Yeah, we kind of know that story. But the other mode would be if I did make it in the NBA. So this would be like a reimagining, or in imagining, because it didn't happen, like scripted parts where I would cast somebody to play my father, and I would be in the NBA or like be an NBA prospect, and those two storylines would intersect. So it's a very expensive idea. But I feel like this is the best way for me to tell it, because there are a lot of kids out there who have aspirations to make it to NFL, MLB, NBA. But, so it's kind of like a fantasy, but also like a what if, because there's so many sons of former players in the NBA and in sports in general, that it feels like a very like apt way to approach that subject. And yeah, so hopefully that'll happen.
Well, we'll be here for you. And Jason, just keep on keeping on.
Appreciate it, man.